What if, one day, you simply withdrew? Not in anger, not in resentment, just in quiet detachment. Have you ever wondered what would happen if you simply stopped being available, not as a punishment to others, but as a necessity for yourself? Most people never consider it, but distance has a way of unsettling everything. It's not just about absence. It's about what absence forces others to face. Because when you step away, you don't just leave a gap, you leave a mirror. And the reflections people see in that mirror are often the very things they've been trying to avoid. It's a strange phenomenon. When you're around, people get used to the version of you that suits them, the listener, the supporter, the comforter. But when you step away, they don't just miss you. They miss what they projected onto you. Because people don't see you as you are. They see you as they need you to be. And that's why your absence unsettles them. Not because of who you are, but because of what they can no longer use you for. Have you ever noticed that when you create space, some people react with confusion, even anger? It's not because they hate you. It's because they suddenly feel exposed. When you were there, they had something to lean on, a distraction, a source of validation, a shield against their own fears. But when you leave, they have to confront something they've been avoiding all along, themselves. And here's where it gets interesting. People don't just react to your absence. They rationalize it. Some will rewrite history, convincing themselves you were never that important. Others will blame you, painting your departure as an act of selfishness. Few will actually ask the hard question, why did I depend so much on this person? Because that question is terrifying. It forces them to see the cracks in their own emotional foundation, the cracks that you unknowingly helped to cover. Something fascinating happens when you leave. The people you walked away from start to rewrite their version of you. But that version isn't necessarily real. It's just the one they need to believe. Some will remember you as better than you ever were, the friend who was always there, the one they should have appreciated more, the one whose absence is suddenly a tragedy. Others will do the opposite. They'll convince themselves you were never that important, that you were selfish, that you changed, because it's easier to believe you were the problem than to admit they never learned to stand on their own. But here's the truth. How they remember you isn't about you at all. It's about them, their fears, their insecurities, their inability to process what your absence forces them to face. Because when you leave, you don't just take yourself with you. You take away the illusion they built around you. And that illusion was never about who you really were. It was about what they needed you to be. At first, they tell themselves it's nothing, that they don't care, that life goes on. But silence has a way of creeping in. And in that silence, questions start to form. Why did they leave? Did I push them away? Were they really that important to me? And slowly, the realization sets in. You were more than just a presence in their life. You were a piece of their emotional structure. And without you, that structure is no longer stable. This is where things get uncomfortable, because now they have to face the truth, but they weren't attached to you. They were attached to the way you made them feel. They were attached to the role you played. They were attached to the version of themselves that existed when you were around. And now that you're gone, they don't know what to do with that missing piece. This is what makes stepping away so powerful. It's not an act of aggression. It's not a game. It's simply choosing yourself. And yet, that one decision disrupts everything. Because when you walk away, you take control. You stop being a character in someone else's story and start writing your own. And that scares people. Not just because they miss you, but because your departure is proof that they don't have as much power over you as they thought. They can no longer shape you into what they need. They can no longer rely on you to be their emotional cushion. And that realization stings. Because now they are left with only one thing: themselves. The fear of being alone. At the core of all of this is one simple truth. People fear being alone. Not just physically, but emotionally. When you were around, they could avoid that fear. But now they have to face it. And for many, that is unbearable. So they fill the space you left with anger or denial or nostalgia, anything to avoid looking in the mirror and seeing the truth staring back at them. That they depended on you more than they were willing to admit. That your absence isn't just an inconvenience, it's a wake-up call. That they don't just miss you, they miss the comfort of not having to be alone with themselves. And that is the real reason why stepping away is so powerful. Because it forces people to face what they've been running from all along. So, if you've ever stepped away from someone, if you've ever chosen silence over chaos, peace over obligation, know this: your absence speaks louder than your presence ever could. It reveals truths that words cannot. It shakes the foundation of relationships that were built on illusion. And most of all, it forces people to confront the one thing they never wanted to face: themselves. And that is the most powerful thing of all. Now tell me, have you ever experienced this? Have you ever walked away only to see the ripple effects it caused? Leave a comment below with this phrase: the void doesn't define me, it frees me. Because sometimes the greatest impact you can make is by choosing to walk away. What happens in the silence you leave behind? At first, they might ignore it, push it aside, pretend it doesn't matter. But silence is persistent. It lingers in places they didn't expect, in quiet moments when they're alone, in conversations where your name should have been mentioned, but isn't. And in that silence, something starts to shift. Because your absence doesn't just remove you from their life. It removes the dynamic that existed between you. The rhythm is off, the balance is broken, and suddenly they have to adjust. But here's the fascinating part: not everyone can adjust. Some will try to replace you. They'll seek out someone else to fill the role you played, to restore the comfort they lost, but it's never quite the same, is it? Because people aren't interchangeable. Others will resist the change entirely. They'll hold on to the memory of you, replaying old conversations, questioning past actions, searching for an answer they never really wanted in the first place. And then there are the few, the rare ones, who will actually face the truth, though. They will sit with the discomfort. They will acknowledge what your absence has revealed. And if they're strong enough, they will begin to grow. But that's their journey, not yours. There's something people don't often talk about when it comes to stepping away. It's not just them who feels the impact. You feel it too. Because choosing yourself isn't always easy. It's not a victory march. It's not a declaration of strength without consequence. Sometimes it's painful, sometimes it's lonely. You may find yourself questioning if you did the right thing, if maybe you should have stayed, if maybe they needed you more than you realized. But here's what you have to remember. You didn't walk away to hurt them. You walked away to heal yourself. And healing often comes with a cost. Because when you choose yourself, you also lose something. You lose the version of you that existed in that relationship, the role you played, the identity you built around being needed, being important, being there. And that can be disorienting. Because who are you when you're not the one holding everything together? Here's where things start to change, not just for them, but for you. As time passes, something shifts. The weight starts to lift. The space you created for yourself no longer feels empty. It feels open. And in that openness, new things begin to take shape. New peace, new clarity, new understanding of who you are, separate from who you were expected to be. Because when you step away, you don't just remove yourself from a situation. You remove yourself from a version of your life that no longer serves you. And that is when real transformation begins. You might not see it right away, but your decision to walk away changes more than just you. It forces people to confront themselves, to ask questions they never would have asked otherwise, to face truths they were avoiding. Some will resist, some will fight against it, but some, just a few, will use it as a catalyst for their own growth. And maybe one day they'll understand. They'll see why you had to leave. They'll recognize the lesson in your absence. They'll realize that sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is the opportunity to stand on their own. And that's the final paradox of stepping away. It may feel like an ending, but in reality, it's just the beginning. At first, they may resist the truth. They may bury themselves in distractions, convincing themselves that your absence doesn't matter. But time has a way of peeling back illusions. Eventually, they will have to face it. The gap you left is not just a missing presence. It's a mirror reflecting everything they tried to ignore. The comfort they once took for granted is gone.